Good evening and welcome to the Greg Tompsett Sports Show. You are joining us here on this wonderful Week 5 Sunday night at halftime of Sunday Night Football, and we are going to whip around the league and give you the latest on all the games that took place this week. And we will jump right in with no further delay. On Thursday night, we saw an interesting matchup, a game that an awful lot of people had the Commanders, and by an awful lot, I mean me, and definitely thought the Commanders were going to be able to win this game. And I will say this was a nice look from the Bears to be able to get a little something going. Specifically, DJ Moore really needed to be able to get him going. Had a monstrous game, 8 catches for 230 yards, 3 touchdowns. Actually, could have had a fourth. There was kind of a phantom play stopped where he was not out of bounds, but they whistled it that he was out of bounds. But they just continued to pull away, never really let Washington get all that close in this game. Washington obviously is built to run the ball and run play action, and we're not, they dug themselves a quick early hole, down 27-3 at halftime. Which ironically isn't that far off from the lead the Bears had the week before when they let the Broncos come back. So good for them to hold on to it. Nothing too exciting. Allegedly, there was a game on Sunday morning in London. I'm not familiar with who played in that contest, but some people told me that there was a game there. I must have missed it. So the next game that we'll get to here in the 1:00 slate was the Tennessee Titans and Indianapolis Colts. Again, real shame. This is the second time Anthony Richardson has been forced to leave a game. Previously, he had a concussion and missed the next week. Today, it was looking like maybe an AC joint sprain. He landed hard on his throwing shoulder. Obviously, Indianapolis is set up well. Gardner Minshew is one of the better backup quarterbacks in the league and played really well. But this one was about Zach Moss. I was shocked to see his performance and a level of athleticism and breakaway big plays that I don't ever remember in his time in Buffalo. It was pretty crazy to be able to see how he performed. Tennessee was trading blows back and forth. A couple pretty interesting trick plays they ran with Derrick Henry, probably the biggest DeAndre Hopkins game so far while he's been in Tennessee. And Tyjae Spears continues to kind of flash as the next in line after Derrick Henry and looking like right now a great change of pace and very possibly a nice starting running back down the line. But Indianapolis defense played well, and every time they had a chance, Zach Moss kept converting first downs. So they came together, pulled out a win, and certainly earned and deserved it. Once again, just the humble salt of the earth people of Boston suffering through just a really embarrassing rough game that no one the likes of them deserve. The New Orleans Saints beat the New England Patriots 34-0. Mac Jones was benched again. This time, again at a point where I think it was 31-0 when he was pulled out of the game. So it's hard to know if that was pity or if that was just not letting him get hurt. I'm not really sure where that came into play. But New England's real bad. Their defense is bad. Their special teams is bad. Their offense is bad. Making the Saints, who have not been an offensive juggernaut, look pretty capable and put up multiple scores. There's a defensive score in here as well. Just a rough, ugly game and a real shame. It couldn't happen to nicer folks. The Baltimore Ravens Pittsburgh Steelers play this game every single time they play. This is the game that they play. It's always going to be 16-13, 17-14 defensive scores, slobber knocker type football, and it was again. Lamar Jackson's actually been playing really well this year and had a rough, ugly game today. Didn't score a touchdown for the first time in quite a while. Justice Hill ran one in. He had 0 passing touchdowns, 1 interception, and was rattled by Pittsburgh's pressure all day. Kenny Pickett wasn't a lot better. This entire stat line was salvaged by the 41-yard game-winning touchdown to George Pickens at the end. Neither team could run the ball all that well. Obviously, there's a couple scrambles from Lamar, but this was a defensive battle back and forth. There was a block punt for a safety. There was, multiple, situational football, intelligent plays from the defense, from special teams, what you would expect from two well-coached teams like this. But Pittsburgh, who was looking down and out, pulling out a big W from a team that really looked very capable and dangerous in the Baltimore Ravens, to knock both teams to 3-2 was a mild surprise. And I expected Baltimore to win this game. So good on Pittsburgh to pull that out in a really, really tough division matchup. One of the more entertaining games of the day from two teams that I don't think you expected that from was the Atlanta Falcons and the Houston Texans. Really, really strong performance, and I gotta say, a lot of respect to the roster that's been put together in Houston. So many people thought that they were going to be tanking or not taking things as seriously, and I think when you can have the performance of CJ Stroud uh, in the way that he has, I didn't see him as the number one quarterback, and plenty of intelligent people did. But the way that D'Amico Ryans has his team together and the way that they're playing, they should be really, really excited. It looked like CJ Stroud had thrown a game-winning touchdown to Dalton Schultz about a minute left. Atlanta, good on them, came right back and drove down and ended up getting the game-winning field goal. Ridiculous one-handed catch by Bijan Robinson on his receiving touchdown. They really got Kyle Pitts involved for the first time all season. 11 targets. I don't know if that matches his season total, but it's pretty close. So good on them to be able to get things going and be able to pull out a win here in a winnable NFC South. But shout out to the Texans, who are playing way above their heads in what most people expected. Maybe the most impressive team on the day was the Detroit Lions, just absolutely taking it to the Carolina Panthers in a game that wasn't even as close as this score made it out to be. Definitely some garbage scores at the end. They were up quite a bit there for a while. Jahmyr Gibbs sat today, and David Montgomery certainly took advantage of that. Some creative plays. You saw a really cool double reverse flea flicker back to Jared Goff, who threw a touchdown to Sam Laporta, who was streaking down the sideline on that. I don't think a lot of people expect much from the Carolina Panthers, and they continue to match that, which now certainly is in the favor of the Chicago Bears, as the Chicago Bears are in position to get the number one pick at this point with the last winless team in the league, and Carolina owes their pick to the Bears because it traded up to get Bryce Young. And I'm not out on Bryce Young. I think that there's talent there. I think that he has, a rough offensive line. He obviously does not have a lot of weapons. Adam Thielen is his number one receiver, and a bunch of other pieces around there. And that's certainly not what a flashing, fantastic quarterback is going to be. But it certainly looks like he's the third best quarterback from this class. And the way that CJ Stroud is playing, to trade up and gave up all the things that Carolina gave up here, you'd certainly like to feel like you had the number one passing option and number one quarterback from that class. And right now, it certainly doesn't appear that that's the case. So we'll see how that one goes. In a game that was not a surprise to anyone, the Miami Dolphins kind of just pulled away from the New York Giants. It was a defensive score here that made it look like it was going to be close for a moment and brought the Giants back within to striking range. Daniel Jones was knocked out of the game at one point, and Tyrod Taylor had to come in to finish. We'll see who plays against the Bills next Sunday night. This is a team, in trouble and struggling right now. Saquon Barkley didn't play. They did get Darren Waller a little bit more involved, but there's a lot of challenges and issues on this team. The offensive line is struggling, and Miami's team speed just completely overwhelmed the Giants. There was some tough defensive plays. They actually had some pressure, forced Tua into two interceptions, both of which were on pressured plays. There was, a decent amount of quarterback hits, but when they got the ball in the hands of guys like A-Chain, Tyreek Hill, you saw them just streaking down the field, pulling away from everybody. Those two had the 69-yard and 76-yard touchdowns, and just certainly pulled away and showed that they're the better team. So good on Miami Dolphins to bounce back today in the way that they did. One that I think a lot of people were curious about was the Cincinnati versus Arizona game, and this was by far the best that Joe Burrow looked. He did take a lot of pressure. He was still sacked 3 times, got hit a good handful times more. Their run game was not efficient, but they were able to move the ball a little bit, and Jamar Chase was just a monster. 15 catches for 192 yards and 3 touchdowns, dominated in every way possible. All the things I said about Houston apply to Arizona. Arizona is a scrappy, tough team playing over their heads. I think 1-4 record is a huge win for them. James Conner actually had to leave this game today. There's just not a ton of long-term talent on this roster, and they're playing really tough, scrappy games every week. This is pretty similar to the San Francisco game the week before, where Arizona hung with a more talented team, and then towards the end just started to get pulled away from it and weren't able to keep up. So good job there by Arizona in being able to remain competitive and put on a solid performance without ruining their draft position, which is good for them. They also have Houston's pick, so it's interesting that those two teams are the scrappy, capable teams that are playing over their heads at the same time. A game that also was really competitive towards the end. Los Angeles had a chance in this game. The Philadelphia Eagles are certainly really, really talented, but the Rams played tough. They welcomed back Cooper Kupp, came right back in with 12 targets, 8 catches for 118 yards. Anyone who thought Puka Nacua was completely going away, he had 11 targets right behind Cooper Kupp. They're going to be the engines that drive that offense. So we'll see what that leads to in the future. They're not going to play a lot of defenses better than the Philadelphia Eagles. Matthew Stafford got knocked around quite a bit, 4 sacks for 27 yards, a lot more pressures and hits beyond there. Jalen Hurts was okay. I didn't think he was amazing in this game. I thought the Rams coverage was pretty good, but he ran the ball really well. 15 carries by Jalen Hurts. They used him a ton in this game. He was picking up a lot of plays, and I wouldn't be shocked if out of there was 4 or 5 first down conversions on his carries. Big AJ Brown game, first big Dallas Goedert game. They had really kind of lost him in their performances. A weird trend. You saw George Kittle having his first touchdowns tonight. We're doing the show live during 49ers Cowboys on Sunday Night Football. Kyle Pitts had his best game. Dallas Goedert had his best game. Darren Waller had his best game. So a lot of tight end usage today randomly in week 5. But the Eagles showed that they were the more talented team and were able to kind of get things going in a lot more favorable light. So, they were able to pull away. They remain undefeated. I don't think they've looked anywhere as impressive as the 49ers have in their undefeated start, but ultimately that doesn't matter. It's they've won every game. They've found a way to win these games. They won in overtime against Washington. They now, held on against the Rams, even though the Rams had a pretty good opportunity early there, but they've won every game, and that's ultimately what counts. One of the ugliest games of the day, you had the New York Jets against the Denver Broncos in the Sean Payton, bowl, and all the trash that he talked about Nathaniel Hackett this summer, coming back to roost in a game that the Broncos had chances here. They were winning 13-8 at halftime. Again, there was a safety. There was some ugly play. And then in the second half, Breece Hall broke his 72-yard touchdown. Their defense really started to assert itself. And as the Broncos actually got a stop and had a chance to come down to kick a game-time field goal, that New York Jets pass rush came through, caused a strip sack fumble as Wilson was rolling out. The Jets actually picked that up and returned it for a touchdown. So it made it seem like a 10-point win, but this was very much in question as it was going down the stretch here. So the Jets finding a good way to be able to hang around. The Broncos now at 1-4. They actually finally own their own draft pick here this year. They didn't have to trade that away for Peyton or Wilson. So I guess they would get some benefit if they kept losing, but a real ugly mess. I don't know that Russell Wilson is the whole problem. Letting up some of the scores they did and the movement they did to the Jets. This is a really ugly defense. They didn't have Javonte Williams today. Jaleel McLaughlin played pretty well. Samaje Perine had some tough runs. Russell Wilson is playing okay, but it's certainly a weird situation. I'm curious to see where that's going to go as the season goes. And our final game here, the Kansas City Chiefs and the Minnesota Vikings, a interesting matchup. The Vikings had a lot of opportunities in this game. There was a really weird situation. Travis Kelce got hurt and came back in. There was a weird situation toward the end with officiating and the call that was made where it was pass interference, but it was rightfully picked back up that it wasn't really a catchable ball. Jordan Addison, I think if he tried to work back through the defender anymore, it would have been kept as a call. But then as it happened, the defender for the Chiefs took his helmet off to argue about it. And you see the referee mouth to him, put your helmet back on rather than throwing a flag. So just a really weird look from the officiating with some of the questionable calls in other games, and now having where they're giving a warning basically in game to one of the teams, and that certainly could have come in to be a benefit of the Minnesota Vikings as they were hanging around and within a score there at the end with the ball. So Kansas City, obviously, people have already questioned if they're looking quite as dangerous as they have in the past. Travis Kelce having to go out with an ankle sprain. He did come back in. He scored. He played tough. So good on them. But that's going to be something to monitor here. Again, they're 4-1. So even though they haven't looked super impressive every single game, they found a way to win. They've been able to now put together 4 straight after losing the season opener to Detroit. They've been able to put together 4 straight wins, and that's what good teams do. They find a way to be able to pull out those wins and get these things together. The game tonight, San Francisco and Dallas, we are just into the second half. San Francisco has a 21-10 lead. The Cowboys came out and opened up with a field goal drive here. San Francisco, in my opinion, looks like the best team in the league and looks like someone who is going to be reckoned with throughout the season. I don't expect that to come a long ways the other direction. They are a very, very capable, impressive team to be able to get some of these things together. But the final thing I want to close on here is to share a little bit about our friends over at Underdog. The Underdog contests that they run all the time are a ton of fun. I was poking around looking at some of the contests that I had running here. I've got a handful in different ones. I've now been passed, and our fantastic producer, Chris Seth, is now in the lead. I have dropped back to 5th. So, I got some points from Jared Goff today. I had a couple running backs on bye. Obviously, Rashad Penny's not even playing. I have Devon Achane, and I'm still somehow losing here. I had the wrong Cincinnati receiver, and although Miami or Arizona is playing scrappy, having 3 of their receivers is not incredibly helpful. Losing Mike Williams for the year, but if you're interested, make sure you're checking out some of the fun stuff that we have going on over at Underdog. If you use promo code Cover1, you will get your first deposit match up to $100. There's a ton of fun contests you can get into. You can do drafts every single week. So if your team is already in the tank and you're struggling, you can go out here, jump in drafts to be able to draft a new team right now, be able to play with them week by week and have a lot of fun. We've really enjoyed it. But make sure you check out, use promo code Cover1. You'll see the link in the show description here to be able to have some fun. You can get in on playoff baseball. You can get in on hockey, all kinds of different stuff here. So this was a lot of fun to be able to do it. RJ saying he didn't watch any other football after this morning's game. So this is a good catch up. I'm glad it was helpful. I did make myself, I think I used it to get away from this morning's game to be able to come in and get my mind onto something else. So I did just sit there and soak in football all day long, this stupid game that monopolizes my life. But I'm glad that it was helpful for you as well. We had a good time with it. So we appreciate you guys. We'll do these each week, just kind of doing a whip around the league and being able to help with all the different things that are going on each week, hopefully with some better entertainment for Buffalo Bills fans. But no matter what, we're going to be here for you at Cover One, making sure you check out all the work that we have going on. There's going to be a lot of really good stuff with the film room this week. Aaron and I have a great guest coming on for the Giants. We're going to be talking about some of the options as we get more reports on the injuries and all the other things going on. So make sure you're checking that out. If you can help me out, give me a like on your way out. Make sure you press that like button. It would really go a long ways. But on behalf of Chris Seth, I am Greg Tompsett. You've been listening to the Greg Tompsett Sports Show, and we